Hey guys, Alex and Dad from 7th Hour Films back again with Doctor Who Classic. Last time around we had the Robots of Death. What happened on that one?
I have completely forgot. But it has been a busy week, so you'll have to remind me of what we did.
So basically, the Doctor and Leela ended up on this mining ship, like a land ship that was
That's right.
going across this planet.
Looked like the Jawas from Star Wars.
Yeah, and there were all these miners in way too fancy dress for miners, and they also had a bunch of robots. The robots turned out to be killing people, although there was a bit of it was a murder mystery for a little bit, but then they realized that one of them was reprogramming the robots to kill the people because he wanted robot rights or something.
And there was a robot inspector?
Yes. There was a robot detective, and then they exploded, and then they and then they won. I don't know. They used helium so that the robots wouldn't recognize their master's voice. So it was a whole thing. It was interesting. It was kind of weird. So,
all right, and just give me a minute here to explain why I've forgotten everything. A couple of weeks ago, I announced that I had a project coming up. I can go ahead and talk about that now since it has been finally made public. It actually starts back in the 1980s. A local theater company in Guthrie, Oklahoma, just north of where we live, had a local playwright adapt Charles Dickens' Christmas story and set it in Oklahoma Territory a couple of years after the land run of 1889, where essentially you see the entire story played out in a Wild West setting. I mean, think of Doctor Who and the gunfighters, all right? Anyway, I went up there. I've done several different versions of Christmas Carol over the years. I was hoping to play maybe, Jacob Marley or Ghost of Christmas Present, something that would be fun. And I got cast as Ebenezer Scrooge. So instead of thinking of, thin, skinny, scrawny Ebenezer Scrooge, think George C. Scott, because I'm playing this character like a, what I used to call him a robber baron, who's buying up all the people who cannot keep up with their homesteads and then selling them for exorbitant prices. But it's the same basic story, just set in the Wild West. All right, if that's not enough, a theater company that Alex's mother and I have been working with as guest directors and guest actors, literally since before we got married, back in 1986. They had an opening for managing directors, so we thought, hey, what the heck, we're retired now. We'll just, throw in our resumes and see what happens. And sure enough, they hired us as managing directors of the Jewel Box Theater, which is going to start taking up some time in January. So Alex and I, depending on my schedule there, may have to adjust our recording time, but hopefully it'll still be put out every Monday when he normally puts them out. So,
yeah.
Thank you for indulging me in that. But I'm looking forward to working in theater again, both as an actor and as a director.
I'm going to say absolute worst case scenario is I have to take a week just myself. I don't think that'll happen, though.
No.
That doesn't sound likely to happen, but just in case it does, you'll all be prepared mentally, and I'll be prepared mentally.
Well, we've always recorded on Saturday mornings. We may have to move that either to Sunday afternoons or Monday mornings, but anyway, we'll do our best to keep to our schedule.
Yeah, so for anyone updating the 7th Hour Films wiki that doesn't exist, there's all that new lore that you can add. So, anywho, today, this is the final story of Season 14, but it's 6 episodes, so we'll be splitting it over these 2 videos. The Talons of Weng-Chiang, which I hear is a really good story, but I know that it has a very unfortunate character in it.
Yeah. Well, we've talked about that many times before. In the Marco Polo story, in the what was the spider story? Was it Planet of Spiders?
Maybe.
Where the old Time Lord, who appeared to be a Chinese Tibetan monk, turned out to be a non-Asian actor as well. Yeah. So it's part of the times. It's just unfortunate that the BBC and the places here in the United States, I mean, there's a horrible portrayal of an Asian character in, I think, Breakfast at Tiffany's. They got Mickey Rooney to play an Asian character, and it was just dreadful. So, it's the times. We understand that. We'll try not to make too much about it.
Yeah. And of course, also in that, not nearly as offensive to that degree, but in that same sort of vein as, what's the name of the guy in Mary Poppins that isn't British?
Oh, Lin-Manuel Miranda in the new one?
Well, there's that.
Or
in the
Dick
old
Van
one.
Dyke.
Dick Van Dyke,
He's an American.
Yeah.
With a
He's
very bad accent.
Yeah, so... And on the other side of that, you have people like Hugh Jackman doing American accents, but we're all fine with that, so... But this, I don't think, is going to be as graceful as Hugh Jackman playing an American, so...
Theoretically, Hugh Jackman was Canadian.
No, that's true.
Remember, Logan is from Canada.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, well. But he's still an Australian playing a Canadian.
Right. So,
who cares?
But I'm pretty sure, this is not going to be... I don't even think this is as graceful as the Asian characters in Marco Polo. Yeah. I think this is going to be pretty bad, but we will try to move past it, and we will try to address the story as it unfolds to us.
All right.
So, with all that said, why don't we just go ahead and jump right into the Talons of Weng-Chiang. Here we go.
Victorian London.
Oh man, they have a disclaimer before the program starts.
Honorable Master is kind to bestow praise on humble Chang's miserable, unworthy head.
That's clever, the way you work, little fellow. Wires in the sleeves, I dare say. But I'll not pry, Mr. Chang. The secrets of the artiste are sacrosanct.
Manager looks very familiar.
Where's my
Your wife came on stage?
Last week! Levitated her, you did. Nobody's seen her. Not since she come here last night, so what about it, eh?
In my country we have saying, man who goes too quickly may step in bear trap.
Right. I'm getting the peelers.
Named after Sir Robert Peel, who's the head of the London Police.
Oh, it's alive.
Now, the secondary actor
Yeah.
appears to be Asian.
Yeah, that was weird. Ah, the Phantom's house.
Except that was Paris. This is London.
These clothes are ridiculous. Why must I wear them?
Because you can't go walking around Victorian London in skins. You'd frighten the horses. Anyway, we don't want to be conspicuous, do we?
Would have been somewhat daring for a woman to wear pants.
There's only so much that you can give Leela without her protesting.
Yeah.
Threadbare and Carey Street up here. People get the notion there's anything wrong with this theatre.
Chang's clanking 9 foot tall.
You've been drinking. Not a drop, so it's time you started. Now pull yourself together, man.
9 foot tall and chains is Jacob Marley.
Here I was.
Kick it.
You stay here.
Not bloody likely.
Yeah.
I will prove, young lady, not asleep.
That's the ultimate form of planking. Using your head.
Lying on metal bar. I've sent for an interpreter.
That won't be necessary. I speak Mandarin, Cantonese, all the dialects.
Ah, yes.
Yes. 你好吗?
So every other Chinese actor is a Chinese actor, except him.
I've seen you somewhere before.
I understand we all look the same.
Are you Chinese? Yes, that's it.
You know, you don't have to say that.
I'm sure we shall meet again,
Yes.
perhaps under more pleasant circumstances.
He's going to kidnap the one girl who'll kick him back.
I'll tell you what.
Oh, it says in the paper how it could be Jolly Jack at work again.
Jolly Jack.
Jack the Ripper.
Look,
By Mr. Jago.
The horrendous hyperbole of Grub Street, Casey. Newspaper gossip. They're probably just Stony and Scarpet. Cut along now. I'll wait for you here.
nah, he went to the future. After being a zombie in an anime, but that's beside the point.
I remember Grub Street being the newspapers. I thought that was Fleet Street.
I was right. It was blood. Over there, wrists.
Those his clothes?
Oh, yes, sir. I'm just taking him for examination.
What was that?
The all-important stick.
He was carrying no personal documents. But this indicates he was a licensed cab driver.
Oh no, not that guy.
I think they're rat hairs.
Rat hairs? Do you know what you're saying, man?
Yes, of course I know what I'm saying.
They're nearly 3 inches long. Doesn't a rat cumber more than, what, quarter of an inch?
Giant
Interesting,
rat of
isn't it?
Sumatra.
Look,
Yes.
The giant rat of Sumatra, if I recall correctly, was a story of Sherlock Holmes that he never told.
Where are we going?
Stay there, Vila.
like, take your fighter with you.
Were you trying to attract my attention?
Good shot.
What's this?
The Janus Thorn?
Look,
Yes, I thought I told you not
He
to
was
carry.
trying to kill you.
Oh. Oh, well, in that case, you'd better come along.
look. Yeah, right?
Gonna let him die and not give him the antidote?
I mean, he threw an axe at him, so, It's a good thing it's wide enough for her shoulder pads to get down.
Well, I gotta say, once again, the sets are fantastic.
Well, ugh. There were rats. You wouldn't have liked it.
They're probably more afraid of us.
Alrighty. That was a pretty big rat. Alrighty. That's part one.
It strikes me that, seriously, they have at least half a dozen, if not more, of the secondary actors who are Asian, and they couldn't find an Asian actor to play Weng-Chiang, as they're pronouncing it.
Yeah, apparently not. So, you know, this is like,
Or Lee Sen-Chang, whatever
yeah.
the doctor called him.
So this whole story is the Phantom of the Opera, plus the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, plus Sherlock Holmes, plus a Jeff Dunham comedy special, plus racism. So,
And Jack the Ripper.
and Jack the Ripper, just to add a little extra on top of it. So, I mean, it doesn't also help that, you know, it's like, all right, here's the one guy who's not Chinese playing Chinese, and then you give him lines like, I know we all look the same. It's like, come on, guys.
Well, that's the standard trope. You know, when some ill-educated person meets up with a person from Asia, it's like, well, you all look the same to me. And there have been tropes where you have somebody who is, of European descent who goes into a Chinese scenario, and they make the same joke that Europeans all look alike to them.
Yeah.
But yes, it's still a trope that should not have been used even by the late 70s.
Yeah, so it's again, it is something that we will let go of, because we want to take the story as the story is being told, but it is a very unfortunate thing that has to be addressed about this story.
Now, Jago said he thought that the ventriloquist dummy was a midget, but it moved more like a young man or a young girl. So
Yeah.
it makes you wonder, who they actually got to do that.
Yeah, so...
By the way, who is playing Li Xin-Cheng? John Bennett.
Like the most white name you could find. So... Alright, so I also got to remember that that's a different name from Chiang.
Yeah.
Weng-Chiang that they were saying. So that's a different thing. I'll try to remember that. Alright.
Anyway, I heard...
Casey, you're a pixelated leprechaun.
Hey, go on home with you, Casey. Straight home. You might get mistaken for one of those girls.
Aren't you coming, Mr. Jago?
Not yet. Some paperwork commands my presence yet a while.
I have to stay here and die. Throwing a bit of Frankenstein for good measure.
You are late. We should not go tonight, Lord.
I must. Every night. Until the time cabinet is found.
And a bit of the brain of Morbius.
Dying, Chang.
Chang, I have given you mental powers
Undreamt of in this century. You are thousands of years ahead of your time. What
the
can you fear
master?
from these primitives?
I don't know, but we just thought that at the same time.
What an amazing night it's been.
It is not over yet.
Jolly interesting all the same. Most of the corpses round here are jolly dull. Now I've got a couple of inscrutable jinx. And a poor perisher who was chewed by a giant rat.
You say you can tell the height of the attacker by the way the blade was thrust.
Mm-hmm.
But when aiming for the heart, we were always taught to strike under the breastbone.
My soul.
Savage. Found floating down the Amazon in a hat box.
Hatbox. Night's work like that always does wonders for my appetite. I'd be honored if you'd share some supper with me.
I'd be delighted, Professor.
The coroner could also play Albert Einstein with that look.
I was gonna say he looked like from Young Frankenstein, Dr. Frankenstein.
Stay with Lightfoot. I'll join you later. Drive on, cabby.
Where are you going?
Palace Theatre.
Stop it over there, this
He's also kind of a Dr. Watson character.
Extraordinary. I say, how can he join us later? I haven't given him the card.
4 Ranskill Gardens. He heard you tell the driver.
Cat, if you want to show us a trout.
Trout?
Why does he never take Leela with him?
Yes, thank you. Terrible weather for the time of the year.
The deal's closed.
Here for your tapestries.
Is that all? No? Dramatic recitations? Singing? Tap dancing? I can play the trumpet voluntary in a bowl of live goldfish.
Don't bother coming back on Saturday.
I'm also a master hypnotist. Now then.
I like that he just casually does magic.
I've grown weary, Chang. Tomorrow, I bring you 2 donors. Young, plump, high-spirited girls. A distillation of their life essences will recover your powers, Lord.
You know, I guess if it is the master, this isn't the first time he's used the Chinese, so...
Let's see what we have here. Mrs. Hudson always leaves me a cold collation.
Mrs. Hudson?
Roast beef, chicken, tongue.
It's a good knife. Aren't you going to eat?
Yes. Just going to eat.
When in the Amazon?
No.
Empty out there now. But I must have got window.
Professor? Are you there? Professor!
Kick him.
Punt him!
He's very short. We know that Leela can kick good.
Now, in Sherlock Holmes and the Curse of the Sign of the Four, there is a South Pacific Islander who is a pygmy. So I don't know if Robert Holmes is kind of playing on that.
Well,
that's the one time I've been on stage in a Sherlock Holmes play. I played Dr. Watson. This is like their second case, so they were both very young.
well, it definitely feels like. I mean, I guess because we've sort of described this whole era of Doctor Who as sort of Holmes-y, ironically, given its writer. So, so yeah, it does kind of make sense. Basically, you're just throwing everything in now. It's like he's got the hat, he's got the the jacket and everything. So you got the setting and everything. So it does really work out. And then you add in Lightfoot as a Watson. I hope he didn't die. And then even Jago to an extent, I would also say. So
now this is really kind of odd. Jago, although he's not a policeman, kind of fits into the Holmes milieu as Inspector Lestrade, who is sometimes portrayed as the bumbling police guy. But Lestrade is he's a very important character throughout the Holmes catalog. And I think in the movies he is, and in TV shows he's portrayed a little bit more of the bumbling type to make Holmes look that much better. But Lestrade is, let's face it, he's a London police inspector, and so he is, obviously very good at his job.
Yeah. Now, of course, I'm mainly basing my knowledge of Sherlock Holmes off of Sherlock the show. If you haven't seen those reactions, go watch them. They were a ton of fun. But even in that, I do remember while Lestrade was sort of the more bumbling, more incompetent detective, I always did like his trust in Sherlock. He would always listen to Sherlock. Yeah. So that was always cool. And yeah, I do kind of see a bit of that in Jago. So, man, why does nobody take Leela? She's like,
well, again, she doesn't fit in. She would more likely cause trouble simply for who she is. The fact that the coroner, when he saw her eat, he had been told that she's from the Amazon, etc. So he was trying to make her feel at home. But again, at the police station, when she almost confessed to killing the guy who was trying to kill the doctor, she would get into too much trouble. So I can somewhat understand why the doctor's saying, stay here, stay out of trouble, because you'll cause me more trouble than I need at this particular moment.
Yeah. He's suddenly realizing how well off he was with Sarah Jane and Joe. So
now in the previous thing, when they were on the sand mining thing, that didn't matter because there was no specific set of circumstances that women were expected to behave like. But in Victorian England, yes, there's a very specific set of things that a girl, especially an unmarried girl, could do and could not do. And so he's thinking, I've been here before, perhaps. I know I need to keep her contained so that she won't cause me more trouble than I already have.
Yeah. It almost makes you wonder if maybe this was originally written with Sarah Jane in mind, and then they had to swap her out for Leela. So, yeah, maybe it could be part of that. But that is part of the thing where it's like, I guess the difference between, a sort of more primitive warrior type, the difference between Leela and Jamie is Jamie could fit in. He knows when not to kill her.
Yes.
Well, I'd say he knows when not to cause problems, but that's just sort of Jamie's way. But it would still be different from Leela. Leela would just, go and do something.
That's her entire life. She's been trained as a warrior.
Yeah, so it's an interesting idea for a companion, but at least they're doing something with it.
Yeah.
So, alrighty, part 3.
Now, I do have a picture of me as Watson, so I could send that to you if you wanted to plug it in.
Yeah, sure. Here, there you go. Now I have to remember to put that in. So,
now we have to assume that the guy in the mask is Weng-Chiang, although they haven't actually said that yet.
Well, yeah.
But he needs a time cabinet. Or he needs the cabinet of Weng-Chiang.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure where the Talons come in at this point.
Oh, that's a good point. Ooh, jeez.
It's the Colonel Bogey March again.
He really only knows one song.
How old is the Colonel Bogey March?
Oh, parkour. Good job.
The sheer criminal effrontery. Things are coming to a pretty pass when ruffians will attack a man in his own home.
Well, at least he's alive.
Chinese ruffians.
Well, that King's vase, for instance. My family brought that back from Peking. Well, that Chinese puzzle box. That doesn't
Ooh.
open.
Ah.
Chap spent all...
Well, of course, that's the answer.
What the dickens are you raving about, Doctor?
Weng-Chiang.
Weng-Chiang?
Weng-Chiang. I do hope that girl Leela isn't in danger.
Weng-Chiang may just be another Time Lord.
Maybe. Yeah, you're trying to be secretive.
Haven't you slept?
Sleep is for tortoises.
How do you know the course of the fleet has been covered for centuries?
I caught a salmon there once. Would have hung over the sides of this table. Shared it with the Venerable Bede. He adored fish.
Venerable Bede lived about 900 AD, I think. Maybe sometime around that point.
He's probably thinking, why haven't I been using them this whole time?
Come. I said come.
Ah, very clever.
How they didn't notice that she's now a brunette and not a blonde.
My dear Lightfoot, I've got a lance and a pair of waders and possibly the most fearsome piece of hand artillery in all England. What could possibly go wrong?
Well, that for a start. It hasn't been fired for 50 years. If you try to use it, it'll probably explode in your face.
Explode? Unthinkable. It was made in Birmingham. Tie up over there, Skipper.
Push the table over on him.
Yeah. Oh no, that's not a good idea.
Him with the giant rat of Sumatra. She'll wrestle him, no doubt.
Alright. That was quite the cliffhanger. Alrighty. That's the first 3 parts.
Well, it's actually very well written. I mean, credit to Robert Holmes. He does know how to write good stuff. And again, I understand that it's not particularly an alien presence, but this is a historical and very much a homage to Sherlock Holmes. And it's fun. I mean,
Yeah.
it's yes, it's sad that it had to be the particular, unfortunate casting that they have, because it could have been done with Londoners, just with he called them. She said what race lives here, and he said the Cockneys do. That could have easily been done. Now, you're having to look at the guy who's on stage, who's the ventriloquist and the levitator and the magic man. But again, that could have been anybody.
Yeah.
But other than that, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Well, and it is the thing I feel like people don't fully understand us when we say that we enjoy the historicals more, because I get the historicals didn't do as well ratings wise. So, but when people say that, they generally say, so that's why they do historicals with an alien presence. That's fine. Do those.
Do more of those, yeah.
It's totally fine to have some sort of alien presence, or something supernatural, but do that. Like, between this and, the Mask of Mandragora, that's fine. Do that. They don't have to be Marco Polo anymore, And as fun as Marco Polo was, I get, you need something else there, but do that. You don't have to go to some random alien world or a quarry every week, you know? Like, this is different, and I like this. So, and yeah, honestly, if this was remade today with an actual Chinese man as Chang, it would probably be really good, you know? So,
and of course, writers today would know how to remove the racist elements from it.
Yeah.
But, you know, in the Daredevil Netflix series, there was, what were they called? The Hand or the...
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, we know that there are, and in Batman with the League of Shadows, there are these, again, tropes of Asian ninja types, some of which have been, you know, actually founded on real things that have happened in the past. That's fine, but you know how to remove all the racist language and basically make it just like, you know, any other particular group. I mean, you can make it like in Die Hard. They were Europeans, mostly Northern Europeans, Germans and Scandinavians. So make it anybody you want. Could have made it Americans in this case.
Yeah. It's just don't put the slanty eye makeup on and with that terrible voice, and then it could honestly just work. Just have a Chinese guy and it could work out just fine. Because even some of it, like the good part of it is, if there is, like, you know, sort of racist language in this, it's not being said by the Doctor or the companion. Obviously now Leela doesn't know anything, but like if this was Sarah Jane still, like, it wouldn't be Sarah Jane. Like when Lightfoot says something, it's like, well, that guy is from Victorian London, he doesn't know any better. So,
and they would have said the same thing about other South and East Asian countries. You know, the British were in India and Afghanistan during this time. Watson had been in Afghanistan as a medical doctor with the army, and in fact, the first words that Holmes says to him is, "You've been in Afghanistan, I perceive." So the British again had this very patronizing. I mean, the Americans did it too during the same, this colonial attitude. So yes, it's actually accurate for the time period. And in the 1970s, I don't think people would have objected to it as much as we understand objection to it today. So, that being said, let's move on from that.
Right. So yeah, we've got Chang and the doll. So it is actually a doll, then.
It appears, because it took a knife to the throat and kept coming, but why does it bleed?
Why does it bleed? It has eyes, too. Yes. So...
And although a lot of the times it had the weight of a person, when he took it out to the carriage, you'll notice that he threw it in and it had the weight of a puppet.
Yeah.
So I'm certainly hoping sometime within the next 3 episodes they'll explain what that is.
Yeah.
But yeah, what do they call it back then? An automaton?
Something like that.
I think in The Great Mouse Detective, Basil finds out that they're trying to replace the Queen with an automaton or something like that. Queen Victoria. So yeah, I mean, again, that's all part of this, what we would now think of as steampunk Victorian era.
Yeah.
Building machines that do that sort of thing. But anyway, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't know why that just reminds me of, see, back in the day it would be, well, they were trying to replace Queen Victoria with an automaton. Nowadays, people would say, well, and even though she's passed away now, it's like, oh, well, Queen Elizabeth was a part of the lizard race. That's what they would say today. So, and not to get off on that, but it's just absolutely hilarious hearing stuff like that, you know. And I think I was watching a video and they were saying, like, one of the most, like, accepted conspiracy theories is that the government can control the weather. And that's like one of those where it's like, oh yeah, like a lot of people do actually believe that, which is stupid. And I think the other guy in that video was like, yeah, they can control the weather. They can't build roads to save their lives, but they sure can control weather. So, anywho, but yeah, so the doll, I mean, I guess the explanation for, you know, when he can just toss it in is, it is a doll that can come to life. But why does it bleed? Why does it bleed when all he seemed to do was just use it, and for some reason it was bleeding out of its hand? But she chucked a knife into its neck, and it just sort of kept going.
Yeah.
So, I will say though, it's so nice. Even though yes, they have to ride around. You can't just have Leela going around everywhere and doing what she needs to do. But it's nice to have a companion who will fight back. So like, and being able to jump out the window and everything. But honestly, because we were sitting here like, oh, just kick him. Even if it is a person that's a smaller person, that one swift kick will knock him down. But the fact that neither of us thought about what she would actually do, which is chucking a knife into his throat.
Chucked a knife into his throat, jumped over a chair onto the table, and then flung herself out the window onto the ground, which was a good 10 feet below.
Yeah.
And came up unscathed.
He got up like it was nothing. So, so yeah, so that is really interesting. And also, I also just realized that I wonder if this is going to be a recurring thing with Leela episodes where she never fights an actual person. Because last episode, she was fighting the robots, and she threw a knife into them, and it did nothing, because it's a robot. So I'm wondering if they now have to be like, well, we have to have some sort of artificial enemy, because we can't just have, one of our main heroes just murdering people left and right. Granted, she did murder one of the Chinese,
with what was it,
the Janus Thorn.
Janus Thorn, yeah.
Yeah, she kept some of those apparently.
And where was she hiding the dart gun?
I don't know, but I love the idea that when the Doctor gives her these new clothes, she finds a way to keep her weapons with her. So yeah, that was pretty funny. But yeah, so we have the whole thing of the missing girls, and I do like the little reference to Jack the Ripper, but it's the missing girls are taken to be like organ donors for
their life essence.
Yeah, their life essence for Weng-Chiang. So that's interesting.
Now, we're not exactly sure he is Weng-Chiang, because the cabinet belongs to Weng-Chiang, and he is simply referred to as Lord up to this point.
Yeah.
And he needs the cabinet, the time cabinet of Weng-Chiang, in order to get back to his previous self.
Yeah. It's if he is a different Time Lord, that's going to be a little too close to the last thing we did with that, because Brandon Morbius wasn't this season, was it? It was last season.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that still had Sarah Jane. So it seems a little too close to have all these different Time Lord stories where they're all trying to get better bodies, because that was the brain of Morbius, and then we also had the Deadly Assassin with the Master. If this is the Master, that was a very quick turnaround on a Master. I mean, granted, we've had an entire season where every story was about the Master, but this would be particularly quick if it is the Master. Yeah. The only thing that makes me think it's not the Master is the fact that Chang specifically calls him Lord. And every time when there's, sort of, mystery about it, they will still say Master. And that's sort of, so maybe it is, and then you realize, it is the Master. They just...
And he didn't seem to recognize the Doctor.
Yeah.
And the Master would have said immediately, that's the Doctor and he must be eliminated.
Yeah, when he says, a Doctor, tall, pale eyes, curly hair, it's like, you just met him a couple episodes ago.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so I don't think it is the Master. But maybe another Time Lord? Maybe. It's entirely possible. There's too many rogue Time Lords all of a sudden. We're going to have to start, keeping a list of all of them. So, because we've got the Master, the Monk, Omega,
whoever the guy was in Planet of Spiders.
Yeah. I can't remember what his name... But, he was the old hermit under the tree. So there's the hermit, and then Morbius, and now potentially this guy. So that's a lot of rogue Time Lords, and we haven't even gotten to Rassilon, who we're going to eventually get later.
And the Rani, isn't the Rani a Time Lord?
Yeah, eventually there's also the Rani.
I've never seen the Rani yet. I've heard.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Every time we do bring up the Rani, you always say that we haven't seen the Rani. And I always say, yes, we did. In Dimensions in Time.
Oh, yeah.
and I think I always say, but I don't blame you for forgetting. So, but yeah, so there's too many rogue Time Lords, and not even getting into some of the ones that'll be in modern Doctor Who. So, but let's see. So what was the name of the mark? I didn't quite catch what that was. It was like the Black Scorpion or something.
Yeah.
Something like that. Which they haven't really gone too far into that, because, I mean, Chang doesn't have that.
Yeah, that's like the League of Shadows, though.
Yeah, so...
And the Hashashins that are in Temple of Doom.
Yeah, so... but let's see. Yeah, I didn't write a ton of notes, actually, on this one. But we did get...
we were enjoying it so much.
Oh, yeah, that's true. But we had the coroner, Professor Lightfoot, definitely filling in a Dr. Watson type.
And, again, talk about a great companion.
Yeah.
Because you got Leela, who's, the trained warrior killer, and then Professor Lightfoot, who is literally just the opposite. He seems to be... I mean, he knows a lot about it because he's a coroner, he's a doctor, but he's definitely against the idea of fighting and killing. And putting those two with Tom Baker would be a hysterical mashup.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, that would also be interesting. I'd also say Jago could be a fun sort of companion. The guy who always seems to have a lit cigar. So
now there was a very famous British theater entrepreneur. I'm pretty sure he ran a theater. He was considered a great designer and a director, who also went by his three names, but for the life of me I can't remember. And he certainly wouldn't have been running a music hall. He would have been doing legitimate theater. He would have been doing the Shakespeares of his time, and hiring Sarah Bernhardt and people like that. I'm sure somebody in the comments will find that out for me, or I'll go look it up afterwards.
Yeah. It kind of makes me wonder why they don't do Doctor Who episodes that just sort of remake older stories, like, because this is very much similar to Phantom of the Opera, just with the setting of the theater and the masked man that goes underneath. Honestly, you probably could just do the Phantom of the Opera, but also it's Doctor Who. So
yeah,
that'd be kind of interesting. Or if they met Dracula or something.
I've always thought meeting, going back, and not specifically meeting Vlad the Impaler, but putting him into the Bram Stoker Dracula.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, when I was reading all of Conan Doyle when I was playing Dr. Watson, I read two other books. One was called The Case of the Sanguinary Count, and they literally put Sherlock Holmes into Bram Stoker's novel, just integrated him in so that he was helping Dr. Seward and Professor Van Helsing trying to find where Dracula was in Carfax Abbey and the whole works. And then there was another one, I can't remember if it was Frankenstein or the Wolfman, but anyway, they had actually put Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson into already established Victorian accounts, like Dracula, like Bram Stoker's Dracula. And again, that sort of stuff, it's all public domain now. Go back and put him into, Les Mis. Go back and put him into The Hunchback of Notre Dame. Go back and put him into the Decameron or Dante's Inferno. Doctor Who in Hell. What a great story that would be.
They have done a story where they found Satan in space, so you just go the extra mile.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that would kind of be interesting. There's another point I was going to make about that. I can't remember it. Although I'm sure people will point out that eventually, and I think it's in the Fourth Doctor's era, I don't know when it is, but eventually we are going to get space vampires. So yeah, eventually we'll get to there. And I guess the other thing about that is you would still have to put an alien element into it, but I don't know, I'm sure you can find some sort of alien thing to put in, like Phantom of the Opera or something.
Yeah.
So, of course, I guess that sort of... It does sort of run the risk of what that reminds me of is the crossovers between these famous stories and Tom and Jerry. They're the weird, I don't know, whoever is running Tom and Jerry right now and has been for the past 10 years, they don't know what to do with Tom and Jerry anymore because we have Tom and Jerry and the Wizard of Oz. It just remade the Wizard of Oz, but also Tom and Jerry is there. And Tom and Jerry and Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. And they're pretty bad. Although I think there is one that's Tom and Jerry and Sherlock Holmes. And it's apparently, like, alright. I don't remember, though. So,
well, if you have never seen The Great Mouse Detective, it is a wonderful storyline. Basil of Baker Street lives under Holmes and Watson's apartment, and he and his friend, who's a Dr. Mouse, are teamed up against this villainous character named Ratigan, who is the Moriarty character, voiced by Vincent Price, and it's just absolutely fabulous. If you haven't seen it, find it somewhere online and watch it.
Oh yeah, and if they did Doctor Who and Dracula, it'd probably be better than Billy the Kid versus Dracula. So,
which I have seen, by the way.
Yeah, so I think there's also like a Batman versus Dracula. So, anywho, but yeah. So, Professor Lightfoot, very interesting companion. Glad, there were like 3 times where I thought he and Jago were like dead. Yeah. And I was like, well, there they go, killing off an interesting character. But there's still, it remains to be seen if they're going to make it through the whole story. Yeah. But so far, so good. But yeah, we had everything with the Time Cabinet, which at the very least, the Time Cabinet is of Earth. So, it's just very advanced for its time, which is interesting. So, it's not... Honestly, you could hear, like, the Time Cabinet. It just sounds like a TARDIS, honestly. Yeah. Just blended in to be a cabinet. But, yeah. So, we'll have to see what's going on with that.
Makes you wonder if the Time Cabinet is perhaps like a Fountain of Youth sort of thing.
Maybe. Yeah.
Because he keeps saying, I have to have it to regain my previous self.
Yeah. Yeah, possibly. And then, yeah, we had everything with Leela going in and swapping herself with the other woman that was there, which was clever. And then being devoured by a rat, and that's where we're ending it. So, it does remind me, because I think we mentioned in The Deadly Assassin that someone was causing an uproar about the Doctor being drowned at the end. And I think someone said that it was like a magazine or something that would go against the violence in Doctor Who, but apparently there was something like they would start complaining about one of the stories, but they were saying things that didn't happen until a few episodes later, and those episodes hadn't aired yet. So someone was saying, like, yeah, so the theory is they had someone on the inside at the BBC leaking these things about Doctor Who to them, and then they would go and complain about it. And it's like, that's very specific for a kid's show. Like, I don't know, put your time and effort into, like, society and, like, making the world a better place. Like, why do you have to put that much effort into Doctor Who? Yeah. It's just sort of a strange thing. So I wonder if there was anyone complaining about Leela being eaten by a giant rat. So, but I don't know. You guys can leave that down in the comments. And next week, we will finish off this episode and this season. So, you got anything else?
I got nothing.
Then that is basically it. With all that being said, we're Alex and Dad from 7th Hour Films, and we will see you guys next time. Take care. Alright guys, thanks for watching this video. There's a bunch of links on screen if you want to go click around any of those. There's a playlist for all of our Doctor Who classic reactions, as well as another playlist for all of my modern Doctor Who reactions if you want to go check those out. There's also a subscribe button and a Patreon button on screen, as well as other links in the description if you want to go check out any of those. See you guys later.